I'm 42. My name's Alina. Most mornings begin the same way, coffee first, then silence. My husband, Mark, sits across from me with his nose buried in a newspaper like it's still 1993. He's 53 but carries himself like he's 73, as if his soul gave up on being curious long ago. He's not unkind, just numb. Predictable. Boring, if I'm honest. Sometimes I wonder if this version of him has always existed, or if age whittled him down to this stump of a man I hardly recognize. But my son, Leo, he's different. He's 21, in his third year studying architecture, and carries light in his eyes, restless, creative, alive. He lives with us, though I often wonder how someone so full of vision can tolerate being in this gray, quiet house. We've always been close, Leo and I, ever since he was a little boy with messy hair and questions about the stars. But lately, it's different. We laugh deeper, talk longer. He notices things when I change my hair, when I wear a new shade of lipstick. Things his father hasn't commented on in years. It was a Tuesday evening when he burst into the salon, eyes gleaming. "Mom," he said, setting down his bag and kicking off his shoes with the confidence of someone who still believes the world is his. "We should throw a Halloween party." I looked up from the reception desk, raising an eyebrow. "A Halloween party?"
Yeah.
"Not just Halloween. A masked anniversary party for your salon? 5 years, right? It needs to be special. Mysterious. No one should be recognizable. Everyone wears masks." His eyes sparkled like a boy planning something mischievous. I laughed, but something inside me lit up. It had been years since anyone planned anything for me. And maybe it was the way he said it, or the way his hand brushed mine when he handed me a flyer he had mocked up on his laptop, that made my heart skip. Or maybe I was imagining it. Still, I said yes. Over the next few weeks, the salon transformed. By day, it remained a haven for skin treatments and whispered confessions. By night, it became a laboratory of secrets. Leo took the reins, draping black fabric, ordering elaborate masks online, sketching a floor plan for where fog machines would go and how to install lighting that would make the mirrors shimmer like haunted portals. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me while I worked. "You're going to steal the show," he said once, almost absent-mindedly, while adjusting a candelabra on the windowsill. I laughed it off. "You think anyone's looking at me? You know my clients call me Miss Alina, not Alina, the enchantress." But the way he looked at me that moment, his eyes scanning my face like he was memorizing it, I couldn't ignore the pulse that jumped in my neck. I had to turn away, suddenly too warm. As the days slipped closer to Halloween, the energy between us changed. At home, we were mother and son. At the salon, working under flickering fake candlelight, rehearsing where guests would dance and where the mystery confession box would sit, we became something else. Co-conspirators. Creators. Almost equals. The night before the party, he handed me a velvet box. Inside was a mask, delicate black lace that curved across the cheekbones and dipped into a widow's peak. "This is yours," he said. "No one will know it's you. That's the point." My fingers grazed the fine material. "And what if they recognize me anyway?" He smiled. "Then they're not looking close enough." I didn't know how to respond to that. The night of the party arrived. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, dressed in a black fitted gown I hadn't worn in years. It clung to my body in ways that reminded me I was still alive beneath the salon smocks and mom jeans. The mask framed my eyes perfectly. I looked like a stranger, and I liked it. Downstairs, Mark was watching a documentary about World War II. I told him I'd be home late. He grunted without looking up. The salon shimmered in fog and flickering lights when I arrived. Music pulsed. The air was warm with perfume, laughter, and the soft rustle of hidden glances. Guests danced, flirted, and touched without knowing who was who. I sipped something sweet and sharp from a black crystal flute, swaying gently to the music when someone brushed past me. His hand was warm on the small of my back. "Enchantress," he said, his voice low and familiar. "Told you you'd steal the show." I turned, startled. The mask was silver. His eyes were golden.
Leo.
My breath caught in my throat. But he didn't say anything else, just melted back into the party, disappearing into the crowd like a ghost. And I stood there, trembling slightly, wondering why my heart had just skipped again and why I didn't want it to stop. Hey, everyone. I'd really love to know where all of you are listening from. Drop your country or city in the comments. It means so much to me to know where the story is reaching. The party pulsed around me, a blur of lights and laughter. My salon had never looked so transformed, no longer the warm, everyday place of hair dye and gossip, but a living dreamscape of flickering candlelight, velvet drapes, haunting violin remixes, and laughter that curled like smoke through the air. I floated between groups, smiling behind my lace mask. People complimented the decor, the drinks, my dress. I laughed easily, drank champagne like it was sparkling hope in a flute. By the third glass, my cheeks were warm and my thoughts a little looser. Someone asked, "Where's your husband? Didn't want to celebrate your big night?" I tilted my head, the smile still painted on. "He's not one for parties," I said breezily. But inside, the hollowness echoed louder than the music. No one here would ever know that despite the laughter, despite the sequins and cheers, I was standing alone in a room full of people. I would go home tonight to a quiet house, to a man who hadn't looked at me, really seen me in years. I wanted someone who admired me, who saw beyond the surface. Someone who felt lucky to stand beside me. I took another sip. No, I took a gulp. If tonight was a masquerade, then let me be someone else for just a little while. Then the music changed. A hush fell across the room as the haunting notes of a slow, sensual piece floated through the air like a spell. Couples found each other. Bodies leaned close. Gloved hands intertwined. The lights dimmed to amber and shadow. I turned to head toward one of the velvet benches, ready to sit this one out, when someone appeared in front of me.
A man. Tall.
Broad-shouldered. Dressed in a tailored black suit with dark gloves and a mask I hadn't seen all evening, matte black with delicate carvings around the eyes, like ivy in the moonlight. Not one of our guests I could identify by posture, by gait. This one was new. He said nothing, just extended his hand to me silently. I hesitated, only for a second. Then I placed my hand in his. His fingers wrapped around mine with a confidence that made my breath catch. And then we danced. No words, no introductions, only music and the rhythm of 1,000 silent heartbeats. His hand pressed against the small of my back, firm but gentle, guiding me with slow, deliberate steps. The way he moved was effortless, confident, and every time his chest brushed mine, every time his breath hovered close to my cheek, I felt something primal wake up in me. This wasn't just a dance. It was an unraveling. My heart pounded, not just from the nearness of him, but because deep down, a part of me knew him. His scent was familiar, clean and woody, with something like amber. His touch, even through gloves, struck a nerve that hadn't been touched in years. I looked up once, into his eyes behind the mask. They glinted gold under the dim lighting. Intense. Knowing. And then the song ended. I stepped back, breathless, half laughing in disbelief at the weight of the moment. But he didn't let go of my hand. Instead, he lifted it to his lips and pressed a kiss to my knuckles. Then he turned. Still holding my hand, he led me through the dancing crowd, through the thickening fog curling at our feet. My mind was spinning. The champagne hummed through my bloodstream. My heels clicked softly across the floor as he guided me toward the back corridor of the salon. I didn't ask where we were going, because I didn't want to stop him. He opened the door to the small storage room, usually cramped with extra towels, candles, cleaning supplies. But now, under the glow of a single, flickering emergency bulb and the echo of distant music, it felt like another world. He pulled me inside and shut the door. Darkness. Complete. The silence between us was thick, charged like the air before a storm. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and fast. I couldn't see his face. I couldn't even see my hand in front of me, but I could feel him, close, his warmth brushing against my skin. His presence was a force, magnetic and heavy. For the first time in years, I felt my body awaken to being noticed, desired. I pressed my back to the wall. He moved closer. His hand, still gloved, brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. I exhaled, trembling. Everything around me, the salon, the party, the years of routine and loneliness, faded into nothing. All I could feel was this. And whoever he was, I wanted to stay in the dark a little longer. The storage room was nearly pitch black, lit only by a faint sliver of light sneaking in from beneath the door. The rest of the world, the music, the crowd, my entire life, was sealed off like a dream I had just stepped out of. He stood in front of me, his silhouette so close I could feel his breath, soft and warm against my skin. And yet, he didn't touch me.
Not yet.
He waited. In that silence, his stillness spoke volumes. He wasn't rushing, wasn't pressing, he was asking. Not with words, but with presence. With nearness. As if giving me one last moment to decide if I wanted to open that invisible door between us. And in that breathless moment I realized I did. For so long, I'd lived in control. I was the planner, the caretaker, the woman who always stayed within the lines. But standing there in the dark, heart pounding in my chest, I was something else. Someone else. I tilted my chin slightly upward. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. And he understood. His hand rose slowly, fingers grazing the side of my face. Even through the glove, his touch was electric, light, reverent, as though he was memorizing me. Then, gently, he cupped my jaw, guiding my face toward his. And he kissed me. Not a hurried kiss. Not a polite peck. It was deep, deliberate, knowing, like he had wanted this moment as long as I had craved to be wanted. My body lit up. It wasn't just the champagne anymore. It was something far more potent. Years of loneliness, of being unseen, unraveling all at once. My skin came alive under his hands, every nerve waking from a long, aching sleep. I didn't even realize how tightly I had been wound until he began to untie me. His other hand slid to my waist, drawing me closer, pressing me gently but firmly against the wall. Our bodies fit like puzzle pieces, his breath mixing with mine, his movements slow but magnetic. He kissed me like he had all the time in the world, like there was no party outside, no clock ticking, no masks at all. And for a moment, it did feel like the masks had fallen away. My fingers found the lapel of his jacket, clinging to it, needing something to anchor me. I let go of every thought, who he was, what this meant, what would happen after. None of it mattered. Only the closeness, the warmth, the way his touch whispered things no one had said to me in years. You are beautiful. You're seen. You are still alive. Somewhere deep inside, the recognition stirred again. That quiet flicker that said, you know this man. You know how he moves, how he smells, how his breath feels against your skin. But that knowing only made my knees weaker, my body more responsive. We weren't speaking, but we were saying everything. And then, just as suddenly as it began, he pulled back a fraction. Just enough to break the kiss, not the spell. We stood there, foreheads nearly touching, both breathless. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. His fingers brushed along my hip, his touch now a question again. Was this too much? Did I want to stop? But I couldn't speak.
I didn't want to speak.
My body was humming, singing, buzzing with a yearning I hadn't let myself feel in years. I had missed this closeness, this wildness, this dangerous sense of being known. I wasn't ready for it to end.
Not yet.
His breath lingered near mine, and for a long moment, we just stood there, bodies close, lips parted, silence thick and weighted. I could feel the wall behind my back, cold and solid, but everything else around me had dissolved. The dance, the champagne, the years. I wasn't thinking. I was feeling. His fingers, still resting at my waist, flexed slightly, like he was grounding himself too. as if he didn't trust what would happen next if he let himself fall completely. And somehow, that made me want to fall more. I shifted ever so slightly, my body arching forward, wordless permission in the motion. He exhaled softly, the kind of breath you don't even realize you've been holding. Then, he kissed me again. But this time it was slower.
Deeper.
Not like a man overtaken by momentary passion, but like someone savoring something they'd imagined 1,000 times. And that was when the flicker of knowing returned. The way his lips moved with mine. The way he pulled back ever so slightly between breaths, just to look at me, though the dark made that impossible. The way his hand curved protectively around the back of my neck, cradling me like something precious. I knew this. But from where? His scent, faint cedarwood, and something warmer beneath it, wrapped around me like a memory I couldn't quite catch. The shape of his hand, the size of his frame, the way his chest rose and fell against mine. It wasn't a stranger's body. It wasn't a stranger's presence. I parted from the kiss again, my breath catching as the realization started creeping through me like morning light under a door. Leo? I whispered before I could stop myself. It came out broken.
Soft.
Uncertain, like a name I wasn't supposed to say. He didn't answer, but his hand stilled on my waist. His body stopped breathing for a second. Just one beat, barely there. Then he slowly stepped back, leaving a breath of space between us. Just enough to make the air feel suddenly cold where he had been. Still, he didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Something inside me twisted, sharp and sudden. I reached up, touching my own mask with trembling fingers, as if removing it might help me see more clearly, help me understand. But before I could speak again, he reached out gently and stopped me. His touch was featherlight, filled with something like apology and something deeper. He didn't remove his mask. He didn't reveal a thing. Instead, he took my hand, and with the same steady confidence as before, he led me quietly back through the salon's winding halls. We passed the velvet drapes, the scent of perfume and candle wax. The music still played. Laughter still danced in the air. The world hadn't changed, but I had. He stopped at the edge of the crowd and let my hand go, like nothing had happened, like we were just two guests, parting after a dance. And he disappeared into the masquerade.
I didn't sleep that night.
I lay in bed, fully dressed, the mask still on my vanity, staring at the ceiling like it held answers. But the only thing it held was the weight of what I hadn't dared to say out loud.
Leo.
It couldn't have been him. It shouldn't have been. But the longer I replayed it, every step of the dance, every glance behind that dark mask, every inch of closeness in the storage room, the more I knew. Not guessed.
Knew.
His silence had been the answer. Not denial. Not confusion. Just silence. The kind that screamed with clarity. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was someone else with the same cologne, the same quiet way of moving, the same intensity behind their eyes. But no matter how many versions I rewrote in my mind, they all ended the same way, with Leo's breath mingling with mine, and his touch lingering on my skin like a mark only I could feel. By morning, I had convinced myself to act normal, as if anything about this could be normal. When I walked into the kitchen, the sunlight was too bright, too honest. The clinking of dishes in the sink felt sharp, like reality reminding me that life wasn't a dream you could fold up and hide in a drawer. Leo was already there, dressed in a faded t-shirt, standing at the stove flipping pancakes like it was any other Sunday. He didn't look up. "Morning," he said, voice even. I tried to mirror his casual tone. "Morning." I poured myself a cup of coffee, my fingers trembling so slightly I hoped he didn't notice. Silence stretched between us again. But this one was different from last night. Not charged. Not tender. This was careful. Like we were both walking barefoot across a floor full of broken glass. "Party was a hit," he said, finally turning around. His face was unreadable.
Calm. Too calm.
"Yeah," I replied softly. "You did an amazing job with it." Everyone was impressed.
A beat.
Then his eyes flicked to mine, just for a moment. Did you have fun? I swallowed, heart thudding. The question felt like it carried weight far beyond the words. I thought about how his hand had felt on my back, the way he'd waited for permission, the way he hadn't spoken once, and how his silence had somehow told me more than any words ever could. Yes, I said. I did. He nodded, but didn't smile. The rest of the morning was a blur of half-conversations and unfinished sentences. We danced around it, both of us pretending that the world hadn't shifted slightly off its axis. But it had. And I could feel it in every glance he didn't give me, every space he left between our words. I wasn't naive. I knew that if I pulled on this thread, everything could unravel. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about the way he had seen me. Not as a mother. Not as the woman who folds his laundry or nags him about locking the door at night. But as a woman. A woman. When I left the kitchen, I paused at the hallway, my fingers brushing the wall as I glanced back. He was still standing there, alone at the stove, the back of his neck tight with tension, like he too was holding in the weight of everything neither of us had said. And I knew that storage room wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I didn't plan to do it. Not consciously, anyway. But as I walked down the hallway, my coffee untouched and cooling in my hand, something in me shifted, like I was being pulled by a thread, by instinct, by a need to know, not just guess, not just feel, but know for certain. Leo was still in the kitchen. I could hear the faint sizzle of pancakes and the clink of a fork against a plate. He was humming under his breath, some melody I couldn't place. But the sound only made the hallway feel more silent, more secret. I paused at his bedroom door. It wasn't locked. I pushed it open. The room smelled faintly of cedar and laundry detergent, his scent. The bed was unmade, a sketch pad half open on his desk, a model of a building mid-construction on the shelf. Nothing unusual, nothing obvious. But my eyes were drawn to the edge of his dresser. A bag, half-zipped. I stepped closer, my pulse picking up. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Maybe the mask. A hint of cologne. A forgotten note. Anything that would whisper, yes, you're right, it was him. I opened the bag, slowly. Inside were some wrinkled clothes from the night before. A shirt. A crumpled tie. And then, the gloves. Black. Elegant. The same soft material I had felt pressed against my cheek in the dark. I stared at them. My breath hitched. There was no mistaking it. These were his. These were the gloves that had cradled my face, that had held my waist, that had brushed my hair behind my ear with the kind of care that made my chest ache. I reached out and touched them. The second my fingers closed around the fabric, a jolt ran through me, not physical, but emotional. A collision of memory and sensation. It was him. There was no more guessing. No more maybe. Leo had kissed me. Leo had touched me. And I had let him. No, more than that. I had wanted him to. I backed away slowly, heart racing, my thoughts tumbling over each other like waves in a storm. I should have felt ashamed. Or horrified. But I didn't. I just felt unsteady. Like I was standing on the edge of something too vast to name. I closed the drawer carefully and turned to leave, but the creak of a floorboard froze me in place. Looking for something? His voice came from a hallway.
Calm.
Quiet. My breath caught. I turned slowly. Leo stood just outside the door, a plate in his hand, his expression unreadable. The mask of the sun I knew was still there, but only just. Beneath it, something deeper waited. Something real. I couldn't speak. He stepped closer, placed the plate on his desk without looking at it. You found them, he said simply. I didn't deny it. He nodded, as if he'd known I would. Silence stretched between us, thick with things we couldn't take back. You weren't supposed to know, he said after a moment, his voice lower now, rougher. But I think part of me wanted you to. The way he said it made my chest tighten. I looked at him then, really looked, and saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. Not fear of me. Fear of losing me. Of what this discovery might mean. I stepped closer, heart thudding, my hand still tingling from where I had touched the gloves. "You didn't stop me," I whispered. "No," he said softly. "Because I didn't want to." The world seemed to pause. And for the first time since last night, we weren't pretending anymore.